Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, comrades, compañeros, welcome to the Moynihan Report. It is Tuesday night in New York City. I'm in Lower Manhattan, and I have never in my life been so cold. I'm doing this in a warehouse. It's so unbearably cold outside. But you're not interested in that, are you? I don't think so. You should be interested in our guest tonight, because I am, and I hope that you watch this show because we have some overlapping interests. I noticed a while ago that there was a phenomenal chronicler of all things crazy on YouTube. I mean, YouTube too. I mean, he's pulling stuff from YouTube too. But I see him on Twitter, X, whatever. And we have a mutual friend who said, yeah, you see this guy? He's the chronicler of all of this stuff. I don't know why he's doing it. He seems to be an insane person who sits and does the things that we don't have time to do, which is pulling all the crazy. And as you know, there is a very high volume of crazy on the internet, and particularly on the right now. And so the Milk Bar, at the Milk Bar on Twitter, is Nathan Livingstone. And so Nathan is Livingstone, isn't it? Or Stun. I think let's say Stone, and he'll correct me. But I want to play a clip because I saw that Nathan, beyond his sort of 100,000 Twitter followers, had gone a little bigger in his native Australia. When I was watching, by the way, the far superior 60 Minutes Australia is actually really good. I really, really like it. And so I was watching a segment on the execrable Andrew Tate and his sort of Aussie Canseco to Jose Canseco, mini-me brother Tristan Tate. And at the beginning of the segment, I saw this bit. Let's take the look at this 30 seconds of 60 Minutes Australia from, I think, last week.
While Tate's online presence is slick, not so Nathan Livingstone's.
For the past 2 years, I've successfully exposed Andrew Tate.
Or Nathan Pope's.
It's a pathetic and failed attempt to intimidate and silence me.
But that doesn't deter these Aussie YouTubers from their mission to expose the truth about Andrew Tate.
I think Andrew Tate is a unique evil in the world, and he's influencing a generation of younger men.
Okay, first comment. Did they have to make the dig that Nathan's setup isn't as slick? You know who isn't slick is Nathan Livingstone. Nathan, we don't care if you're slick. You're doing God's work out there, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So this is 2 episodes in a row that we've had an Aussie. We had Josh Zepps on the last episode who called in from the gym. So thanks, Josh. We love you, but get home, drive home next time. But Nathan, I don't know a ton. I got to be honest about this, about Andrew Tate, because the clips that I've seen, he seems like such a noxious, almost cartoonish character, and just the type of person that I really can't stand. So I haven't done that deep of a dive. He's a Brit American who lives in Romania. You live in Australia. Tell me the connection. Why did this obsess you? And, what are the consequences of this obsession? Because you've exposed him, and now you're in court with him in Florida. None of this makes sense. Make it make sense for me, Nathan.
Yeah, I still pinch myself. Me and my wife are just like, how did we get here? And I guess, like, long story short, I started making videos on social media around COVID because I lived in Melbourne. So we went through the longest lockdown in the world. By the end of that, I'd had enough of government intrusion in my day-to-day life. So I weighed up everything and decided I wasn't going to get the COVID shots. That then led me to being fired as a forklift driver because of their mass vaccine mandates. And then from there, I was in this weird position where it was illegal for me to work. So I used my skills as a filmmaker to start making content about the COVID response. And then from there, I then expanded into other areas. But the Andrew Tate one was because I saw people in the same circles that I was running in that embraced him. Mm-hmm. And the more I saw of him, the less I liked, to, put it mildly. And then by the time he was interviewed by Piers Morgan and then Tucker Carlson after he was indicted for human trafficking and rape, I saw that Tucker gave him a similar softball interview to Nick Fuentes, where I felt like I caught Andrew Tate lying about his charges. And he claimed that he wasn't charged for the things that I just said. So that then led me to investigate more and put together my first compilation video. And Andrew Tate is unique because he's left seemingly, a years-long trail of incrimination of him self-snitching on video. So as a filmmaker, as a video editor, I just thought that was endlessly fascinating. If you think about like Jeffrey Epstein, but you think that Jeffrey Epstein potentially taught courses on the things that he did in the way that the methodology of trafficking. I thought it was a similar kind of thing to Andrew Tate and very unique to kind of where we are at today with the social media age.
Yeah.
So that led me to make just a lot of kind of bite-sized videos. The philosophy was that I'd make videos that were very easily shareable on Twitter and on social media, and each of them would cover a different subject. And so, yeah, it just took off, and there's just a rabbit hole element to the Andrew Tate, to his criminal cases, to the network of people, of influencers that seemingly support him and prop him up. So I just kept going, kept making more and more videos, kept going down the rabbit hole. And I think I was fairly effective. They got seen. And the narrative over time ended up shifting around Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
I think the veil was lifted and people were able to see who he really was. And so now I think he's, in my opinion, seeking revenge and trying to come after the people that effectively expose who he really is. And so, I'm one of those people. And so now he's suing me for defamation.
So, I mean, in the most popular of these videos, or is it, I don't know if it's the cumulative effect of the videos, but we're talking about tens of millions of views, right? I don't know if it was one that was 35 million views. Is that right? I mean,
Yeah.
You're a forklift driver in Melbourne, and you are put out of work because of these, what I think were absurd mandates. And it's kind of like a stroke of luck. I think of it as kind of like Shane Gillis, who was very lucky to be fired from Saturday Night Live and then went on to have an insane, great career because of it. I mean, you found your niche after this. 35 million views on a single video. Now you're in court. Explain how does that happen? I mean, defamation, there's no defamation if what you're saying is true. What is he claiming isn't true?
Andrew Tate he's been explicit in the past and said on camera that, he will use the US legal system. He will weaponize it against his enemies.
Yeah.
It's quite ironic because he's the one who continually says he's being attacked by the Matrix and is a victim of lawfare. But he's been open in the past saying that he doesn't care about winning. It's the process is the punishment with this, and that he'll happily spend $1 million to take $1,000 off someone. So that's what I see as happening. The idea, the premise of the lawsuit is that it's me and 13, I think, other content creators on X who've been, reporting and chronicling his court cases in Romania for the past 2 years. And so he's kind of lumped us all together and said that we're part of a conspiracy to defame him. And the idea is that because people in Florida saw these posts, that then means that that gives it jurisdiction. And I think maybe there's one person who's one of the defendants that lives in Florida, so that means that he can then anchor it into Florida. But it's very surreal. I personally don't believe that he thinks he's actually going to win. I think it's just about, like I said, the process is the punishment with this.
But and I presume that you have lawyers that are pro bono. I mean, I'm not going to make any assumptions about, the guy who drives a Bugatti versus the guy who drives a forklift. But I presume that this is not a cheap affair for you to defend this. I mean, as you say, the process is the punishment. I mean, is it punishing to you financially to have to go through this?
Yeah, we don't have a pro bono lawyer. We've engaged an attorney, but we are having to pay for him. So, I mean, if I can do a shameless plug, we do have a fundraiser for that. But you can go to
Yeah,
Truth
no, I mean,
Versus.
I encourage the shameless plug, particularly when this type of lawfare. I mean, look, so many conservatives during the Trump administration said that they opposed the process of lawfare to punish your enemies, and this is an example of that. And I mean, it's also a speech issue. I mean, you're not making things up. You're taking clips from his videos, which are pretty heinous. I mean, I've watched some of them in the past 24 hours. I wish I hadn't. I don't need
Yeah.
these things in my life. But you said in the 60 Minutes clip that it's worth it because you find him to be a sort of unique evil online. Explain that a little bit. Why? I mean, there's so much hideousness on the internet. Why this one in particular for you?
I think for one, you need to start with what he's actually charged with. And what he's charged with, horrific things. I mean, we're talking about human trafficking. We're talking about trafficking of minors. We're talking about sex with a minor. We're talking about multiple rapes. And we're talking about, accumulate all the cases. We're talking about a tally of over potentially 50 victims. And we're talking about women who've made formal accusations now for over a decade, include going to the police. I think by my count, there's up to 10 women now who have formally accused him of choking them while having sex. Some of them even passing out and coming back around to find that he's still having sex. Some of them that they claim that they were choked so hard that the blood vessels in their eyes burst. One of them, two of them claimed that he was choking them. This is a guy who's a kickboxer, big guy. He was choking them with one hand while punching them in the head with the other. I mean, these are brutal, violent, horrible things. But on top of that, he's also the most Google man in the world. And he has this, what I see as this kind of cult-like following from younger men.
Why do you think that is? I mean, I look at this, I see like the archetype of the type of guy that I want to be, miles and miles and miles from. Whereas I do another show called The Fifth Column. My co-host, Matt Welch, who has a young daughter who's in high school, a couple of years ago, he told me that she was quoting Andrew Tate and, watching Andrew Tate videos. Why don't I see it? What is it? What is the attraction that he's the most Googled man in the world, number one, and number two is getting a very positive reception from people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and people on the right that, they talk about, their trad lives and the desire for, a kind of Bill Bennett world and Christianity. And they're giving these soft focus interviews that to a guy who's on tape beating women. Have you in any way figured out what this appeal is? Because it evades me.
I think of it like, when Jordan Peterson arrived on the scene, me as a young male, he had a really good influence on my life. I kind of spent my 20s just kind of like meandering. And he was the one where I was just like, yeah, do you know what? I do want to marry my girlfriend. I do want to be a dad. I do want to, take my life seriously. And it's time to kind of like, let's start going, I'm not getting any younger. Let's take up the responsibility and try and figure out what that best version of you looks like. And then Jordan Peterson got sick, and it was around the same time as COVID came. And you're still looking at like on the, the tail end of the whole Me Too movement and all this idea of toxic masculinity. And I think Andrew Tate kind of filled that vacuum, that void that Jordan Peterson left. And I think he took a lot of the good messages that people gravitated towards from Jordan Peterson. The idea that masculinity isn't something that's only negative. But then I think he just filled in all this, all that other stuff that actually is toxic, that they actually were warning about. And that is that idea of, it's all the hedonism. It's all that idea of, it is better to be rich. Don't be a brokey. That means that you're a loser. Be rich. Why just have one girlfriend? Why get married? Like, why not indulge in all these senses that you want? And that's the idea, like you said with the Bugatti. In many ways, I think it's ironic because I think he's actually been imprisoned by that now. I think now that people are awake to who he really is, he's just left with his cult-like following. And so now he has to role play that. There was just a survey done where Gen Z said that, he's largely irrelevant, that he's become a meme. But to get to your point about the Tucker Carlsons and these others, I think these people, it's all just what is the reaction to the government, to the elites, to all these ideas that you can say that we oppose. And so I think they just look at Andrew Tate, they look at his massive following, and they say, okay, we'll leave the bad, we'll take the good. And, this is going to be a boom to our audience. We get hits, and it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you see with Carlson, things like, what is the ultimate version of the deep state? That's why he's talking about the Kennedy assassination. That's why he's talking endlessly about Epstein, the, UFOs, the government's hiding that from us. I mean, is that not the biggest example of the deep state? They're lying to you about everything. And it's also true when you see, the reaction to Jordan Peterson and, that being, a positive thing for so many young men and people who filled stadiums to see the guy. And then you see it go further into the Tate. The version of that in like the wokeness, the battles over wokeness, is we've ended on a real racist, which is Nick Fuentes. Somebody who says, I don't like black people, I don't like Jewish people, and they should not be in our country. I mean, Josh Hammer and these pundits who are kind of pro-Israel pundits say, get out of my country, says the man with the last name Fuentes to a man who was born in the United States, but has, in Nick Fuentes' view, the misfortune of being Jewish. But I think it's interesting what you're saying is that it sounds as if, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, that you came to this, from the government of Australia being especially crazy during COVID. I mean, every government was pretty crazy, with the exception of Sweden, where I used to live, shockingly. That they love government in Sweden, but it shockingly wasn't the craziest, and it was the other end of that. And it seems like these are kind of the waters that you were swimming in. I mean, kind of right of center, kind of skeptical of state power, et cetera. And then if you look at your Twitter feed, which I recommend people do, it's a great service, it would look as if you were a man of the left, like some kind of left-wing guy that's out to expose Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Andrew Tate, and all the people in that universe, that really wretched universe. Tell me a little bit about that political journey. I mean, is it that you were amongst these people and you said, hang on, I mean, I came along for this ride, but you guys are going a little crazy?
I find it interesting because you're right. It is interesting to me that people watch my videos and somehow they know that I'm center right. If I was going to have to pigeonhole myself, I find that interesting because I don't really signal that. So I take that as a compliment, that I feel like people can see it, that I'm not doing just shameless attacks, that I actually am coming from that perspective of trying my best to put people in context. I never take people out of context. So I don't know, that is this thing of people seem to pick up on that without me having to explicitly say it. But no, you're absolutely right. Even with COVID, I did find myself going down rabbit holes. Like now when I look at the state of things and the videos that I'm making on people, I'm now like, I am absolutely not a conspiracy theorist. I actually look back towards COVID and I'm like, wow, I kind of went a little bit too far in some ways and I pulled myself back. And I think you're right. I think there are these people who have taken COVID and a lot of this stuff and they've just run with it. They take it as far as they possibly can. Because it's not popular to say. They put you in this position where you're having to defend the government, or you're having to defend, institutions and big pharma, because they're saying that, if you're against this, then you must be for this. And it's just like, I'm for team reality. I'm for like the truth of like, let's understand this. I think that's absolutely right. It was me swimming in the same waters with all these people where I'm like, I definitely do not like this, I like the Candace Owens with like Brigitte Macron. It's like, I don't like the Macrons, but I don't like that I look at her and she's blatantly just has this like campaign of harassment and bullying based on lies.
I mean, I don't,
and that's
I don't
where it's just like,
I'm
with you. If you can see that, and if you can see how ludicrous this is, I'm with you. We're on the same team.
No, my natural reaction is like, oh, I'm not a huge fan of Macron. I wonder if his wife is actually a man. The leap is not there for me, but there is so much tribalism now that, you see, and I think is a very healthy thing, is this kind of internecine battles on the right? There's people that are trying to kind of, for the soul of the conservative movement in this country. And there's so much that seems to be at stake. And every time you go on X, I don't know how much this filters out into the real world. Most people, as you saw in the elections last week, are just like, things are too expensive. I mean, that's essentially where it is. But I do also think that the stuff that you do and the stuff that you're chronicling is important, because over time, this infection, this kind of the groundwater gets tainted and it becomes part of the mainstream conservative movement. And look, I've never been a fan of Ted Cruz. And I'm like, oh shit, Ted Cruz is great now. I've never been a fan. I mean, I interviewed and had a pretty fun, combative interview with Dinesh D'Souza, who went down this conspiracy rabbit hole. And I put it to him that I thought he was doing this because it was getting more attention. When he was more academic, which he started his career that way, he'd get reviewed in the New York Review of Books, but nobody really cared. And then he started making these documentaries about how the election was stolen in 2020. But it's even too far for him now, in that, you let this stuff in, and then all of a sudden it becomes completely wrecked by these people that are desperate for clicks, and they're desperate for, they make a ton of money on this. I mean, what do you think that motivation is? I mean, I don't think there's a direct parallel when somebody says Candace Owens is the biggest podcast in the country. A lot of us listen to that because we like watching the car crash. So I don't think it means that she's, the intellectual leader of the American conservative movement, but it's clearly appealing to a lot of people. Have you thought about why that is? And why, particularly somebody like you who said, I was going towards those rabbit holes, I was peering into them, and I started going down them and pulled yourself back. Most people, sensible people, would pull themselves back. When you look around, you say, well, everyone around here is completely out of their fucking minds. But that didn't happen to you. And a lot of people would just say, this is great. This is where I'm going. And this is where the clicks are, the money is, et cetera. Why do you think that's happening?
I'm not sure. Look, sensationalism sells. That's always been true.
Yeah.
And it's as old as time, the idea that the journalist will do anything for a story, including bend the truth. But I think you still had these institutions, like the New York Times, or even like CNN. There was still this idea where it was like credible journalism. And, you had editorial standards and a legal department. That's just gone with social media and the internet now. It's a new age. Whether some of these institutions, they do have their faults, and they have lied, and they should be held accountable. And over time, people have lost trust. Yeah. People have absolutely seized on that when it comes to this new media. And new media is here, it's not going away. And so, I think you now have this new class of journalists, but they're not journalists, they're influencers, they're commentators, and they're also kind of celebrities. So all the lines are blurred now. But you also have the real-time feedback of what does well, so you see that instantly. And consciously or subconsciously, you're going to go after the things that get reactions and get engagement. So I think that's why you see that. And I think you're right. Like people are on their phones all the time. But I think especially commentators and influencers, they're on their phones all the time. So I think what they're seeing is dictating the content they're making, and it's being driven by the engagement from their audience. And so that's why I think we're now seeing it go into just more and more sensational territory. That Occam's razor, most likely explanation, is out the window. It doesn't exist. People don't want to see the most likely explanation. We just live in a world now where anytime there's going to be a political assassination, there's always going to be a second shooter. There's always going to be a big state conspiracy. That's just the reality. And you can say that's because the government's lied in the past, because of JFK. Maybe that's true. But I think also that's giving a lot of out to people who I think who just don't care about the truth anymore. And
No,
think
I mean
people
the
should be.
JFK thing is an interesting one. I mean, we've had Gerald Posner on the show who wrote the book Case Closed, and Gerald Posner, who is a totally fascinating guy and made his life difficult in the same way that you're seeing now. And you should look into this because he wrote the book Case Closed, and it is a really good, like a very detailed book that makes the amazingly controversial case that Lee Harvey Oswald shot John F. Kennedy. And that was it. Sorry, guys. And if you look at the Occam's razor of that case, I mean, Lee Harvey Oswald was handing out fair play for Cuba pamphlets and was mad about American foreign policy, particularly the Bay of Pigs. And previously, I guess it was a couple of months before, he tried to kill General Walker, one of the heads of the John Birch Society, shot into his house and barely missed him. And there's nothing surprising. He defected to the Soviet Union. None of this is surprising. Everything points to the guy who then escaped and shot a police officer, Officer Tippit, in Dallas. It like makes perfect sense, but nobody wants that to be true because the larger narrative is one that one has to service. And look, I think Oliver Stone is who's a grand conspiracy theorist, has ruined so many brains because if you look at polling, and all of this happened after the release of the JFK movie, which I have to admit is a good movie. It's absolute horseshit from beginning to end as a factual matter, but it's a good movie. And the number of people who believe in a JFK conspiracy, I think, is somewhere over 70, 80%. It's enormous. If you say, as I do, I don't believe in that conspiracy, I've read a lot about this, I was obsessed with it for a little bit and came to that conclusion, well, it seems fairly obvious. It's like, the Warren Commission sucked. COVID protocols sucked. You can't believe anyone. That leap is where you get Candace Owens in these types of people who believe that, well, we shouldn't trust the institutions. So now we trust the blatherings of some person sitting in front of a microphone on the internet like me and like you. But I try to, and I know you too, try to ground these things in some sense of reality that doesn't seem to matter. I mean, I've talked about this kind of endlessly in the fact checking of Donald Trump. That was supposed to be what was going to bring Trump to heel. All the newspapers had the fact checkers all of a sudden. They would say without evidence in the middle of a piece. So it would say, Donald Trump said, comma, without evidence. And we were going to just almost bully people into realizing that this guy was lying all the time. And the fact checkers would delineate these lies, 5 Pinocchios, 4 Pinocchios. And then you realized no one gives a shit at all. It's a tribal association. The MAGA people on the left, the Zoran people in this city of New York City. That's a really hard thing to deal with. So in a way, Nathan is fighting this battle that it's kind of a impossible battle to fight because we used to presume that if you marshaled the facts, you won. But that's not really true anymore, is it?
No, I especially with the Andrew Tate stuff, it really made me appreciate a lie makes its way halfway around the world before truth can put its pants on. I mean, that's absolutely true. You just see that, and it's really it is kind of incredibly depressing how little people care about the truth. You think like, aha, I caught Candace in a lie, clearly a lie. So here you go, and people don't care. People don't care because the original lie is far more fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's where it's like that's the interesting thing. I made a video after the Trump assassination attempt in Butler, and I was the first one to real time put together all the footage to show how long it was that authorities were alerted about Crooks, the shooter on the roof.
Yeah.
Until Trump was then shot. I lined that all up, and at that time was 2 minutes that they were aware. And that video went really viral. And I'm proud of that video because it shows the legitimate failings from the Secret Service and the authorities. And there's some real questions of how that could happen, how they could seemingly be aware that there's a shooter on the roof and not pull Trump just off the stage.
Yeah.
That's where it's like, there's legitimate questions, but people fill that then with all this crap. That's the amazing thing with the Candace Charlie Kirk assassination. When you boil everything down, The only evidence they seem to have is he spoke weird in texts and Discord messages,
Hmm.
and there's a bullet that is seemingly it rarely, doesn't leave an exit wound.
Hmm.
That's it. It's kind of incredible that there's not more that they can actually hang onto. But yet you can
Yeah,
see
no, the
what
number of
Candace has
people who
done
know how to do
fill in
autopsies.
with all this stuff.
Yeah, it's like
But it's
after 9/11, everybody was a metallurgist and like, fire doesn't melt steel. And I'm like, you live in the bus station and you're telling
yeah,
me these things. This is what an exit wound looks like. It's like you have a foregone conclusion. I mean, this was the guy, this mustachioed bird brain there, Ian Carroll. And you always understand this stuff that it on the timeline, it was, I think, the day of or the day after the Kirk shooting where he had tweeted, this was Israel. And I'm sorry, do you have, from your bed sit in wherever the hell you live, you have some intel that is, I mean, come on, like, I mean, the same thing, someone just posted, right before we started, I saw this, that some guy said, hey, I looked back at my old Instagram messages and saw this message from Zoran Mamdani's wife, who's now wife, who wasn't his wife then, who was criticizing him and said, hey, you're not talking about the genocide that's happening in Gaza. And the date on it was like November 2nd, 2023. Like immediately, people are coming to those conclusions, then backfilling it. And that's always the tell, is the timeline of like, immediately that the thing happened because you have this very, very twisted worldview that needs to be serviced. And then you go and find the evidence. Guess what? There are anomalies in every shooting. And the things that can always be explained by incompetence, as you point out in the Butler stuff, are then explained by some sort of grand, sort of mustache twisting conspiracy. But conspiracies are fun and make you seem interesting, that you're digging in, because the quotidian stuff is boring, right?
yeah, and that's the thing. Somehow Candace has made that Brigitte Macron has a penis
Yeah.
into that she's somehow causing a revolution in France and bringing down, these elite pedophiles. That she somehow connects the dots between Brigitte Macron to Jeffrey Epstein
Yeah,
to Robert Maxwell,
of
who was
course.
who was involved with the people who wrote the school curriculum, and they indoctrinated American kids into
Yeah.
the Holocaust, into believing that, into this grand scheme about Zionists run the world. It's this, like, you really do watch Candace, and you do get this feeling of like schizophrenia where you're trying to like understand how you got from there to and then when you look at it, it's like it is all just air. It's all just
No,
her
I mean, what was the
finding.
thing? I think I saw it on your feed, and I rely on you, Nathan, to watch this stuff so I don't have to. Um, but
Yeah,
there was
that's
something
right.
about bees. She was going on about there was some sort of bees involved in the Charlie Kirk assassination and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there thinking, people cannot possibly be watching this in looking at a person who is in any way tethered to reality. But do you remember the bee thing, by the way? Do you have any
Yeah, the
sense of?
B thing was
Yeah,
she took a break before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. She took a little break, right?
yeah,
And then she came back and she connected it to the trans shooter. There was a trans shooter with a Catholic school.
yeah.
And she said there was dark stuff, so she needed to take a break because it was all just too heavy. Um,
Hmm.
and and
Yeah,
and then she connected it because it was then like a month after Charlie Kirk's assassination. It's amazing how she times this stuff. She like kind of like, okay, now's the time to talk about this. Um, but she was talking about why she took that break, and it was because she was looking at schools or kindergartens for her kids, and she looked at one, and then she searched that school, and it wasn't teachers, but there was people involved with teachers who were talking about bees, something to do with
hmm,
bees.
yes,
That freaked her out. She thought it was like coded language.
of
Um,
course.
so then she decided she was gonna homeschool her kids.
The poor
And
kid's like, Mom, fucking bees? What are you talking about? Can I just go to school? She's like, no, the bee.
I
They're talking about the bees again.
yeah, and she showed the receipts like, look, see, I'm right because I texted my sister about this, about the bees, and seeing all
Mhm.
this stuff about bees. She didn't show the screenshot of the thing that she was referring to about the people talking
Yeah.
in code about the bees. Just the message to her friend to show that's her receipt, you know, like I'm legit here.
Yeah, and then I just love this stuff. I'm sorry to interject another one because I just remembered the other one. There was something about the Stanford prison experiment,
oh my God.
and
I mean, we
I
can,
didn't
yeah,
even
we
I
can,
couldn't even follow it, but it was like it was
we
literally
can
like
go into that. I'm nostalgic for that.
that was a
era
great
where it
one.
was just about Macron rubbish like that. Because now this Charlie Kirk stuff is so dark. It's so like horrible. I'm nostalgic for when it was just the kooky
Yeah,
Macron.
there was
You
there
know,
was
I wish we
kind of
could go back
less
to that.
evil in the sense that I can't imagine what would provoke me if I had a friend or somebody who was formerly a friend or a good acquaintance or somebody I'd done a live show with or something, that they were brutally assassinated in public and in front of their family, and video of it is circulating online, that I say I am going to connect all this stuff and I have the truth. And by the way, I'll be premiering this at 8 p.m. tonight, and if you're a subscriber,
Yeah.
I mean, the crass monetization of a tragedy of somebody who you knew rather than some sort of random person, and this is my job to comment on things, and I happen to be some sort of paranoid schizophrenic. That is the thing that kind of shocked me, but I guess I've lost the capacity to be shocked about this stuff. But I was a bit taken aback by how everyone was quick to try to make money off this, in the fact that
Yeah.
nobody was really seeing that and seeing it for the disgusting, like vile. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It fills me with so much rage.
I mean, I've been following Candace since like 2023 when she first did an interview with Andrew Tate. And she was clearly running defense for him. And then she did an episode where she attacked one of his alleged victims, and defended a convicted child molester
Yeah.
in an effort to come after this alleged human trafficking victim. So I've seen her do really grotesque stuff over the years, and I'm convinced she's, like a morally bankrupt grifter, and there's some real, like, psychopathic things going on here. But even with her with the Charlie Kirk stuff, it's even that floored me. How much she's gone all in, and how much she's now saying, "I've got the #1 podcast in the world. I've got the #1 podcast in the world. Look at this." And you look at her, like I counted her top 30 shows she's done. I think she's done like 20 something since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Every single episode has been entirely about the Charlie Kirk assassination. And
So the
everything,
incentives are
surrounding
there, right?
that. Yeah,
I mean,
she hasn't taken a break. She hasn't taken
Yeah.
a break. It's all been about this investigation. And so out of her top 30 altogether shows since she started this since leaving Daily Wire, it's like 20 episodes out of 30 of the Charlie Kirk investigation. I mean, she's getting huge ratings. You just see it. And
I mean, it's not
so
we'll air quote investigation. I mean, it's nothing.
investigate.
I said to
with her Candace
her
investigation
tip line.
agency.
I
Yeah.
said to a friend, we should create the craziest tips and send them, until I then realized that that's already happening and no one seems to care, and she seems to be investigating.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about Nick Fuentes, because you pay attention to this stuff so much so that you know what Candace Owens' top episodes are. Is that there's some fear amongst normal people, and particularly normal people on the right, that he is somebody that has an incredible amount of influence and is slowly infecting the brains of young conservatives that maybe 30 years ago would have been reading George F. Will and watching William F. Buckley on television, are now in this world of just, abject Nazism and racism that, there was so long where there was great inflation on the word racism. Everything became racist. And it's like, no, guys, this is like he's like saying, I don't like black people very explicitly. How true is that? I mean, Rod Dreher, the American kind of Catholic conservative writer, posted something on Substack the other day that's being widely shared. And I think Rod's a smart guy. I disagree with him on a lot of things, but he's a smart guy. And he was in D.C. He met with J.D. Vance, their friends. And he said that, after spending these days in D.C., I see I can't even remember the percentage that he assigned it, like 70%, some very large number, that are essentially groypers, that these people that are affiliated with the Trump White House, affiliated with conservative institutions in DC, whether they're think tanks, whatnot, but there's an enormous influence of this stuff, which went from ironic racism to just straight up racism. I mean, when you're looking at this stuff and pulling clips, do you think that Fuentes is somebody that we should worry about because he's exerting a surprising influence on young right-leaning people?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hard thing where it's like, how seriously do you take the guy?
Yeah.
Because a lot of what he says it to get a reaction. And so in many ways, by you reacting or overreacting to what he says, it actually gives him more power.
Yeah.
So then you think, well, I'll just ignore the guy. But I mean, that's kind of what people have been trying to do for years, and that doesn't work. I don't know what it is. When you look at the groypers, I see it more like Peter Pan than like, Hitler. And I think it's that thing where he's got like these lost boys, but they're like incels, They hate women and they're racist and they're fully bought into this idea of the global jury's in control. So it's like, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? You have to take that seriously. But that's where it's like I make videos of commentators and people and them being hypocritical and contradicting themselves and showing that they don't believe in these things. Fuentes, you can't really do that, because it's like he does believe it. He has been consistent. And the alarming thing is that the what would used to have been the mainstream right has actually kind of bent now to him. It's come to him. That can't be ignored. That can't be denied that, Tucker Carlson is like, well, okay, this guy is a force. I've got to have him on. And I'm not even gonna really challenge him.
No, I mean so I think that's the issue. I mean, we've all lived in this world where we've debated this idea of platforming people, which I never liked that phrase because, I always point out that we have a perfectly serviceable verb, which is interviewing people. But the problem isn't the platform or having the person sit across from you. If they're influential, people have interviewed Charles Manson multiple times. It's completely rational and normal to have these types of people on. But when you do it in a way that is so kid gloves, and so soon after Carlson went so hard after Ted Cruz, and you don't see that much from him because the show on Fox used to have like, the joke was always he'd take some like college student and like punch him in the mouth with like easy opponents. But at least they were opponents. I mean, at least there were people that are offering contrary views. Now it's an echo chamber of stupidity, an echo chamber of madness. And when Fuentes comes on, the softest pushback, right? I mean, there's almost no pushback at all.
Yeah, no, do you really think that people are going to leave that interview? I mean, does Tucker think after he did that interview, I really wonder. It's like, do you think that people are going to be more in favor of Fuentes or less after this interview?
Yeah.
Do you care? I mean, do you care about that? Do you want them to be more or less? I'm not sure. It boggles my mind, But that's where it's like it reminds me of the Andrew Tate thing. I'm the same with you. I'm against cancel culture. I don't like, even with the Candace stuff, people are like, well, who are her sponsors? Mm-hmm. It's like she has the right to have sponsors. That's fine. I don't believe in like
harassment. That's up for them to say who are we paying for.
Yeah, but that was the thing with the Andrew Tate stuff. It's like every time I saw someone announce they were going to have an interview, and I saw they were kind of on the right and that they were kind of like in his sphere, I just knew that they were going to give him a platform to be able to just what I believe lie and just lie about his case, and to just use that. And I see that as Tucker. He seems to have just built this like, I don't know what, it's the strangest thing since leaving Fox. This idea of like he just had a chemtrails guy on. Like it's
today there was the
out there stuff.
Yeah, and I sent a message to a mutual former friend of Tucker. I knew Tucker back in the day, and this guy was friends with him too. And I sent the chemtrails thing, and I said, what do you do? Like compared to pornography, is that there's a point where they're just like, we're running out of extreme things to do. We're getting more and more extreme, right? And this is Tucker is like, he's running out of crazy. And it's like, I don't know, chemtrails? Like, have we done chemtrails, guys? Let's do chemtrails. And you have a series of pilots and meteorologists and aviation specialists who say, not only is this insane bullshit, is that it's an impossibility for all of these reasons. And people say, oh, there was no chemtrails before like 1980. And then all these people were posting photos of bombers over Germany that were just leaving contrails and condensation. Yeah. It's like, the amazing thing is that we were trying to, poison the Germans while we were bombing them, apparently at the same time. But there is a point at which the outrage machine, like pornography, it needs to get more and more extreme to keep people's interest. I mean, Tucker defending the Taliban. This is my favorite one. They have a great anti-drug program, while not pointing out that they produce all the poppies and they actually all the heroin comes from there. But amongst them, they have a great anti-drug program.
The rape rate of 0 in some Sharia law places.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, there's no crime in North Korea. When Megyn Kelly was talking to Ben Shapiro, and she quoted Tucker saying, Maduro, he's a social conservative and really great on social conservative issues or whatever, which, by the way, is not even true, but it's irrelevant. And Ben Shapiro has an appropriate response. He says, who gives a shit? But my response would have been, yes, and so does ISIS. ISIS is a very socially conservative organization, if that's what you want. But the entire purpose of conservatism and the right was always trying to find that balance between the Constitution, individual liberties, and what we need to make a society function. That's gone out the window. I mean, the fact that people don't care about the authoritarian impulses of certain politicians, as long as the results are good. But I'll ask you about this, because I mean, this was a big thing for people who were annoyed about the kind of plague of wokeness in a certain period of time, was at the end of that, people taking the exact same style of argumentation, style of changing the laws and the culture, and then just saying, well, that's how they did it. And they did it, so we're going to do the exact same thing to them. We're going to achieve our goals in this kind of illiberal way. And this just is kind of, to me, an endless loop of bad behavior because the other guy did it before you. I mean, I see that in a lot of the people that you highlight on Twitter.
Yeah, that's why I think of myself, like, I'm so agnostic on so many things now.
Yeah.
You
say now though, but so you changed your mind on a bunch of stuff.
Well, it's more that, I'm comfortable either not knowing or knowing enough to say that I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. I think there's a good equation that I think people should have, where the level of confidence they talk about something should be kind of equal to the amount of knowledge that they have on an area.
Yeah.
But that's completely just that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist for the average person. Certainly doesn't exist for commentators. Yeah. I mean, people talk with such, assuredness about things they have next to no knowledge about.
Yeah.
And it's just not good. It's not good for people to be experts on everything as soon as it happens all the time. And to immediately, you have to pick a team. We live more and more, and I think it's what you're saying. It's the same thing where it's like the Black Lives Matter, where it's like you got to post a black square. It's the same thing. It's like that's I don't really talk about foreign affairs, world events. Even with the Israel Gaza thing, I don't really talk about that. Yeah. Because why would I?
Yeah. Why? I think, Nathan, is because we don't have enough voices on that. We don't have enough opinions.
Right. Yeah.
We definitely
it's so complex. Why would I? Why would I, a forklift driver, an Aussie, start talking about the Gaza-Israel conflict?
Yeah.
I can talk about commentators. I can talk about the hypocrites that I see, and grifters. I know that. Like, I've seen that enough that I can show that. But people they so badly want to be able to pigeonhole you. To say like, are you calling it a genocide? If you're not, then you're pro-Israel, and it's like, I just don't do that. I don't do the team thing.
Yeah. But I mean, you do focus on, not foreign affairs and, should the United States have participated in the bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities. But you're an Aussie that is very focused on American politics. I mean, where does that come from? I mean, how is it that, I mean, is it simply a function of the fact that Australian politics are a bit boring? Or is it that, this is something that is just the stuff that's fed into your feed and you started responding to it?
Well, I mean, Australia is very much downstream from American culture, and especially with the politics. A lot of what happens here is a reaction to that. And, I still think you can look to what's happening in America, and it's going to eventually filter here. But, that's the thing. It's as much as I don't directly commentate on what's happening in the world. That's where it's like the angle I do take is people who are trying to attack the West and dismantle, these things that I think are very, very important. And so that's
what are those things that you
commonality
think
that
are
I see.
important? What are those things that you think are important?
My grandfather fought in World War II, and that was, as you can imagine, that was a massive part of his identity. And
Mine too,
I'm well aware. I'm well aware of the toll that took and the sacrifice he made, let alone the people he fought with that died. So that when you start to kind of look back and say, well, let's start to like pick at World War II again and pick at who were the good guys and who were the bad guys. And I see very much people pulling on the same threads that they're pulling today. It's like it doesn't take long to slide down the path of COVID was an attempt by global forces, to try and imprison us and turn us into slaves. To then like, what are those global forces? Those global
who are
forces,
they?
who are they? Oh, look, it turns out it's the Jews.
Well, thousands of
then,
years.
it
that's
turns
always
out
been the
Hitler was
answer,
in fact fighting these very same global forces. This is bad stuff, and it gets back to the groypers and Fuentes. It's like,
who do you think that the most dangerous person is in this universe of? It doesn't have to be American. It's just this kind of new sort of red-pilled, black-pilled groyper political culture. I mean, who's the one that worries you the most?
I mean, Candace to me is the most blatant one, because I think she's actually effective at using popular culture as a pipeline to then radicalize people. She'll talk about, Blake Lively and what's going on there, celebrity type stuff. I mean, literally the 30 episodes that I said were most popular, it's Charlie Kirk, and then it's the Blake Lively stuff, and then the Justin Bieber, and then her Macron stuff, and so you
I didn't
see
know
how
she
that,
was doing.
you see how that works.
Is Justin Bieber controlled by the Zionists or something? And I don't even know what.
But, I mean,
don't know
this
if
is
she
the thing.
did
It's like she's
episodes
never.
like that.
You've got to remember, she was an intern at Vogue, and then she was a leftist blogger who was talking about, how affairs are romantic and how big Trump's penis size was before she became red pilled. So she's never really left that. She's just returned to it. But I think the thing about Candace that I think is so bad is that, I mean, you had like, I was too young, but when I look back at the OJ coverage, it's like that stuff was like sensational, over the top. You got like Nancy Grace. You've always had these kinds of people. But what do you do if you then throw in like fortune telling dream interpretations?
Yes.
And
exactly. And then
someone who puts
too.
themselves at the center of the story and who says you can't trust any other source but me. I mean, it's just any editorial journalistic standards have completely gone out the window.
Just to get back to the Tate stuff, this is in court in Florida, right? What stages is that? I mean, there's a point when a judge can just throw this out and you can go about your merry way. But like, how much is this intruded upon your life in the sense that do you have to physically be here at any point in the US and make your way to Florida? You have to pay lawyers here. Do you have to do depositions? I mean, how effective in a way is this kind of lawfare on your life? I mean, this is from forklift driver to someone being sued by the most, according to you, I don't know if this is true, I guess it is true, the most Googled man on the planet.
It's yeah, I think that it's very it's very absurd, the lawsuit, but
Yeah.
it is very real and serious. So we're trying to get it thrown out. We want to just be done with it as quickly as possible. But yeah, if it doesn't, then it'll progress to a trial. I won't have to be there in person. I'll probably have to zoom in. But it's gonna be very, very, I don't know. It'll be very, very strange. I don't know if they're counting on it getting to trial. But yeah, I mean, we have a lawyer, and lawyers are expensive. These things are expensive. And yeah, so if you want to go, you can go to truthversustate.com. You can read the lawsuit. We've got the lawsuit there. And you can also go to the fundraiser. But I mean, we're trying to get people's attention with it because, yeah, the majority of the people are people on Twitter, on X, with a tiny following, who are even anonymous. So and these are people who have just posted about Andrew Tate and about his criminal cases. So we're trying to get people to rally around. Maybe you like Tate, maybe you don't like Tate, but it's a terrible precedent for someone who is criminally charged in Romania, in the UK. He's being investigated in America. Who's coming after just like everyday people who are just trying to post and get the word out about what's going on with his criminal cases.
Yeah, I was in Miami, I can't remember, I guess in August or something, and walking around the Wynwood district, which is this kind of arts district in Miami, and I saw a poster of really well done. It was in the arts district of Andrew Tate saying, "Get out of our city," because he, I think at that point, was in Florida, and maybe he was there filing a lawsuit. I have no idea, but he had come to Florida, and enough people knew that they had kind of postered around that he wasn't welcome there. But how I mean, you've spent how much money, just an approximate?
Well, we've raised 25,000, and we need to keep raising. So I'll put
Yeah.
it that way.
Just put it that way. Yeah. Your lawyer's not like, that's enough. We're good.
That's right. Yeah, definitely not.
All right. Well, my final question to you is, what is, I mean, are you going to keep doing this? I mean, there's enough crazy forever, right? But is there a point at which you say, this is a drop in the ocean. There's not a hell of a lot I can do. I mean, clearly with the 60 Minutes piece, with the lawsuit, you've been effective in the Andrew Tate thing. I mean, you're trying to inform people, but you're also trying to change people's minds, right? But you don't also editorialize. I mean, is there at some point going to be a shift to like making a film about this, or being a little more explicit about what you think about this stuff? Or are you going to just be aggregating these clips? I mean, I imagine this is your living now, right? I mean, you do this for a job, right? And you wake up in the morning and you are watching crazy stuff. You're like one of those poor YouTube moderators in like the Philippines who has to watch like beheading videos to get them off the platform.
Yeah,
you watch that stuff so I don't have to. But this is your job. But what is this going to bring in the next like couple years? I'm sure you've thought about it.
Yeah, I just found myself doing this organically. Just one thing led to another. And so in many ways, I'd love to just get back to making horror films like I was before COVID,
Yeah, not the forklift, the horror films, right?
Yeah. I'd love to just get back to just making, art house films.
Yeah.
But, I have found that this has organically been successful. And I do, it's like what we spoke about at the start. I do like the arc that now I found myself, critiquing the same people that I was probably hoodwinked a little bit, at the beginning with COVID.
Yeah.
And I do like this idea of, how do we actually like analyze and see the tricks, and the way that these people are programming and brainwashing people. and breaking it down, that conspiracy thinking, you know.
Yeah.
I think people like that. I think they resonate towards that idea of, you know, let's go back to thinking like analytically and interpreting what
Yeah.
people are saying. Like, let's break it down. Let's see what Candace is saying. What is her evidence? What are her proof? What is the proof? People respond to that. I really like that. You know, I'd like to do more long form content. That would be the thing that I'd move towards. So
Yeah, well, in
it would be
this,
something like documentary, something like that. I would like to do that. So I don't know how that would look, but yeah, I don't particularly like social media. So
yeah, well, that's a
I
bad
kind of
thing
would
when you make
love
your
to.
living
Yeah,
on.
I would love. I don't know if that's unrealistic, and it's just the I'm still a bit like old fashioned, but you know, in 5 years' time, I hope if we check back, I wasn't even on Twitter or social media anymore.
Yeah. Well, in the long form thing, I think one of my suggestion to you, because you're so knee deep in it, neck deep in it, is how this stuff works and how it's successful. Unfortunately, that is then used as a playbook, as Christopher Hitchens once said about going to North Korea. He said, you know, they read 1984 as a playbook. Yeah. This is how you do it, right? And that is kind of probably what you would end up doing by writing about this stuff. But it is interesting to me as somebody, you know, you're like one of those ex-Nazis that can come from inside the movement and say, they got me for a minute, but this is how they operate, and this is why the stuff is so convincing. But it's at the Milk Bar, right? No TV? Is it Milk Bar TV?
TV, yeah.
It's at Milk Bar TV. It's just in my feed. And I click on it so much that it's always very prominent in my feed when I wake up with one eye kind of glued shut, hung over. I'm like, all right, what's Nathan posted today from the crazy people? But you should be following that too. Nathan Livingstone, thank you so much for joining us. Absolutely fascinating stuff. And yeah, and give him some money too. The guy's being attacked by this gross, knuckle-dragging doofus who's trying to lawfare his way into having no more online opponents. We don't like that. Maybe we'll talk to the people at Fire, because this is also a speech issue. So Nathan, thank you for joining us from Australia. And the rest of you, Thursday, we'll be back at 7 p.m. Won't be a live show. Taping that one tomorrow. It's a really good one. I'm very excited about this interview. I don't know if it might be a bit combative. That's all I'll say. I didn't want to say much more because then they don't show up or something, and then you got to like explain yourself. So go over to us on YouTube at the Moynihan Report, and you see it there in the Chiron now, and subscribe. But come back on Thursday at 7, because it might not be live. It'll be live for you. We're not taping it live, but we have a great episode. And then I will say the one that we're going to be next Tuesday, I'm super excited for. Super duper excited for. A big media mogul who I'm really excited about interviewing. But, you know, I don't want to jinx it, but keep it coming back. So we will see you then, and see you on Thursday. And thanks for watching. Bye.